Hello there. Yeah, I know I haven't streamed in an entire month, which is pretty insane. But I'm kinda back, not sure for how long, to talk about something incredible. I had a stream about this in the past, something called Harp. A thingy for Neovim that lets you move around files really quickly. The idea of Harpoon improved massively to provide you a better UI, I guess. I've actually expanded on this idea quite a bit, and now it is a full-on program. So let's go to Harp. I wonder about, yep, not here. Let's go to projects, Harp. There we are. Let's GHL, open this in my browser so we can go and look at the project. Yeah, why now? Okay, here we go. I guess that's because I haven't been on GitHub for like a month, something of that kind of percentage, which is wild. Let's move chat there and do this. Okay, so this is now a project of its own. It used to be just some configuration that I had in my Neovim config, but actually I'm forgetting. Let's notify my Discord server. By the way, link it is in the description. To chatters, streaming right now about Harp. Here we go. So it used to be just some code as configuration, specifically and only for Neovim, written in Lua by using a bunch of different files, because I can't be bothered. Hi, Misha. Because I can't be bothered to parse data in Lua, so it was kind of ass in a way. I thought I was a waving hand. I think on YouTube chat there are some special things that get turned into emojis. I might be wrong on that, but it feels like it's the case. It's a washing hand. Oh my god, it was loading this entire time. Can't see it. I'm honestly surprised I can even see profile pictures, because at least in the past, I've since removed it with CSS. Now it does. If I go on YouTube and try to look at profile pictures of people, I just don't see them. They're gray with really? You're not gonna scroll? Thank you, awesome window manager. So with this, in the corner of the screen being cut out. So I usually can see PFPs, which is interesting. Maybe at this point I can, but I haven't tried. I had the CSS to remove them because I can't see them. So I haven't tried again. And now, as usual, I start streaming and my cat starts screaming. And I bought, I know, right? I bought something incredible. Well, I bought a lot of things, which I might get to at the end of the stream. But I bought a water sprayer specifically so I can spray my cats with it when they're too annoying. On God. Did I tell anyone that I used to be a rapper? I'm not gonna share the music that I made. I'm overall proud of it, but it's so personal that I'm more ready to send porno of myself than that, you know? But I used to make music, trap metal / necro trap. So yeah, Imagine, that's kind of insane. So what is HARP now? HARP is a Rust program, believe it or not, even though it's like 65% shell, which I can actually show you why it's 65% shell. I think we go here. Let's go to fish. Really? Oh, hold up. Maybe this? Yeah. Let's go to... It's 65% shell because of this. Which is really funny. And in this comment I explain why I couldn't be bothered to do it better. But yes, it is indeed a Rust program. Like most of it is explained here as usual, but the TLDR, the main idea of HARP, is that it is just a program that conveniently interacts with a YAML file. That YAML file can contain sections, so like top level sections, and each section can contain registers, so subsections basically. And each register can have a path, a line, and a column. So a string, an integer, and an integer. And that is basically the storage. So let's go and look at my harp.yaml. Wait. Maybe like this we can find it. Harp.yaml. Nope. Maybe like this we can find it. Harp.yaml. Where are you? God damn it. We'll do it like this then. .local share harp.yaml. Here we are. This should have been stored in my history, by the way. Like, I don't know what's up with that. Let's actually do it this way. I prefer it to be like this. So yeah, this is how it looks. This is a section, and this is a register that has a path. Well, this one currently doesn't. A line and a column. And this kind of idea continues. Here's another different section, which has a register that does have a path, but doesn't have a line and column. For what it's worth, yeah, we are storing like a lot more stuff, which in this case, for example, is unnecessary. So maybe like I'm over storing stuff, but I don't think it matters that much yet. Maybe you can make it matter in the future, but that's a whole different question. So HARP is just that. It's a program that interacts with a data file designed to be helpful for storing file locations, including the path and the cursor location, basically. And then you can use the program HARP from within other programs to conveniently interact with this data that you store. So, thanks to this design, HARP is not just specifically for Neovim. It is not specific to any place. You can use it in any program that allows you to call another program and get its output. And even then, you don't always need to get its output, you know? So it's very wide, I guess, like that. And that is why, aside from having a thingy for Neovim that we're gonna get to, I also have a thingy for fish shell, because I found it useful. Let me actually show you how I can use it. So I press my special thingy and then G, and I go to this directory, to 3, to 6, to A, to D. I made bookmarks for my shell using HARP. And well, here you can actually get what I'm using. I think it's more or less what I'm using. Kinda. As usual, I'll probably change a few mappings, but the idea still stays the same. So, thanks to this design, we have this community folder that contains a bunch of implementations for different programs. Here is an implementation for Fish. So you use harp in Fish to get bookmarks, essentially. So you can add this to Ranger, you can add this to Emacs, to whatever you want. And when it comes to community, I'm very open to contributions. I think it's better to have something than nothing, even if that something is not particularly like well done, made, configured, whatever. So if you feel like you have a use for harp, maybe for a program that I don't use, feel free to PR to this project to add your like usage of this program. So let me send you the link. Here you go, to the project. Yeah, I'm not gonna like go over explaining the how to use it because it's in the README and written and explained better than I could muster up at this current moment. Like, I spent a lot of time writing all of this, so it's probably going to be better. So we have this project, right? But in the title of the stream, I mentioned that we made a plugin, a Neovim plugin specifically. And that is the case indeed, I'm not lying. Me and Thorinori, I'm not sure, like, maybe I should actually credit him first, because he is the reason the plugin exists. We made a Neovim plugin that uses harp for its functionality. And here it is. It's an interesting situation because I wrote the code that used to be here in community to use harp in Neovim. Then Thori was like, well, hold up now. Actually makes immense sense to make this into a plugin, to make this easier to use. And at that point, I was really fucking tired of working on harp. So it was like, I can't be bothered. But Thori could bother, and let's thank him for that, because it's honestly a big step, at least in my mind, to go from code that works and does something to normally like packaged and everything like works together in harmony, all that type of stuff. I wonder if I'm too loud. I feel like I probably am. How do I, yeah, like this. Let's, yeah, make myself go to 80. Yeah, so basically, he's the one that made this into an actual plugin by like doing something, I'm not sure what, even still, to make it easily installable with lazy.neovim, probably Packer, probably plug, I don't know, you know, no clue. But basically, you can install this as a Neovim plugin, like in a very normal way. And what does this specifically give you? Well, this gives you the actual functionality that I built all of this framework for. It's way more flexible, this framework, but at the end of the day, I had some functionality in my head that I wanted to get. So let me actually show this to you. I'll go over each type of, as I call them, harp. I know, very original. And just show you how I use them. So first of all, we have default harps. These just let you store like global files. What do I mean? So for this type of harp, I have my mapping leader S. And now it says get harp. Basically, it asks you for input. So it's basically like, oh, give me, like, press a key, give me a character, and I'll go to that register and grab the path and move you to that file. So let's press C. I press C and I end up in this path because I stored it there. Let me go spray my cast again. I'm back. So I store this file path in register C. Now let's actually go back to not X remap, but this, and let's actually store it somewhere. Is this? Yeah. So here I have a file, which is the harp.yaml file, so the data file, that I want to store because it might be something that I want to go into often, especially while I'm showing off all of this, right? And I can use global harps. Well, I guess they're just called harps. To store this file. So let's do exactly that. I press leader capital S. That's just my mapping, by the way. It's not built in. You make your own mappings, and all of that explained in the actual plugin. But yeah, that's my mapping to set a harp. So let's set harp lowercase h. We have now set it. I can do leader S to jump to another harp. Let's go to X. That's where my X remap config, which is, I shit you not, 1,500 lines long. And yes, it's absolutely ridiculous as it looks. And now I'm like, oh fuck, well now I want to go back to that file. I could do something with my history like this, for example, or maybe I could search for it, which you noticed at the start of the stream was kind of annoying and long. Or I could just do leader sh. Literally 3 characters, and I go directly to the specific file that I wanted to get to. Isn't that just incredible? I find that it is. So harps are really useful for all the files that you might visit often, no matter where you are. Like currently, my current working directory is proj harp. But when I jump to these files, these global harps, it doesn't matter what project I'm currently working on. These are just files that I want to visit often for one reason or another. So some configuration files, like is the case for me. That's pretty surprising that harp A is empty. But like this, Astro LSP, what else do I have? T, telescope, I guess, didn't even know. Oh, fuck yeah, right, because of Neovim 0.10, we now have inlay hints, right? They're called like that. Holy fuck, that's so cool. I'll come to that. I still haven't discovered that yet, but it's really fucking cool that we finally have this. Like, yeah, I'm just now noticing this on stream, which is pretty cool. What else do I have in like other stuff? Abstractions, I guess, is on R. I didn't even remember that. What is in J? Nothing. What is in K? L? Right, Astralis P. Yeah, so a lot of them are not taken. Because while this is very useful, there's like a limited amount of files that always matter no matter what you're working on. And that is why I wonder if this is actually in chronological order. Yes, it is. So this is why we have current working directory harps. So we have this basic idea of global harps, harps that do not care what your current working directory is and just go you to a file, like no matter where you are. However, what if I am working on Glaza, a project that's been finished for a long time, but I still cannot bring myself to write the documentation, and I've been using it very fucking actively for a lot. Let's actually let's go to share Glaza. Yeah, I have 11 unpushed commits. It's basically a show tracker, but I'll get to it eventually, trust me. So most of the time, the files that you want to get to are specific to a project, rather than, oh, I always want to have access to this file. So yeah, maybe I'm working on Glaza right now, and maybe a description. I have this file here that is used by the help page, so that when you do Glaza -- help, it will show that at the top. Still working on it, which is why it doesn't yet. Yeah, so this is a file that I might come back to very often throughout the development of this project, because you can see here it explains how the program works. I may change how the program works, especially while I'm still working on it and it's not like properly released yet. How do we solve this situation? Thankfully, Telescope lets us search for a file within our current working directory, which is what I'm doing right now. So I can pretty easily, like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, technically I could just do 5, but 6 is more sure, and that's what I would do personally. So 6 characters, and I go to this file, and then main, and then again. Maybe I'm like switching to the files, and yeah, there's the concept of alternate file, that's true, but what if you need to jump around 3 or even 4 files? You look at each one, do something in each one, and jump around to do changes in different files. At this point, you cannot really rely on alternate file. It will be more annoying than worth it, because you'll have to not only manage like 4 files, but also manage keeping the same alternate file. It's a fucking mess. So you don't have a clean way to just jump to one of the files that you're working on currently. Well, with harp, you now can. Let's do leader capital X, if I remember correctly, and I do set local harp. And let's set this to D. And we set this to D. Let's go to main. We do the same thing, uppercase X, and this is going to be M. Let's go to models and do the same thing for O. So now what I can do is leader X D, and I go to description directly. Leader XM, leader XO. So I halved the amount of characters I need to type in to get to a certain place. Once I have been in a file, once, I can mark it like, okay, let's store this in this register. And now I have a very quick and easy way to jump to this file. So we can work on many files kinda at once, because the cost of moving between them is so low. You may argue that, oh, actually, 3 characters over 6 characters is not that big of a deal when you're switching to a different file. And I would like to disagree, mostly because, so first of all, you bring up telescope. It did not pop up immediately. It wasn't a huge deal, but it was noticeable that it took some time to appear. And sometimes it is even possible for you to start typing the name, and then it doesn't immediately realize that you're typing in, and then it receives your input, and that kind of confuses me every time. You can blame this on my computer, I don't know, but it is true that a lot of people who use Neovim also use it because it takes less resources than, say, VS Code. Some people can't afford that. And I would say I have a pretty, good enough computer. I stream after all, but even still, it can be noticeable when telescope is brought up and how input is processed. It's not so instant that it's not noticeable, you know? But when it comes to using harp, I won't lie to you. You can sometimes notice the file being loaded in. Like, for example, you open some new file like args, like this, what you just saw. It took some time to open this file, but this is actually not harp's issue. It just so happens that it can sometimes take time to load in a file, which is what happens here. Yeah, so aside from this kind of built-in Neovim thing, the fact that loading in files can take time, aside from that, harp is fucking instant. So we have these per project harps, and what that means is that when I jump to a different working directory, dot files in this case, now when I use leader XO, I go to a completely fucking different file that is bound relative to this working directory. What this means is that you can reuse the same registers again and again and again for them to mean different things depending on what project you're currently working on. So it's the same idea as the usual global harps, but you only get however many keys you can press for global harps, and then you kind of run out. With current working directory harps, you get another set of, let's say 62. It's actually quite a bit more, but let's just say 62 for example, for lowercase, uppercase, and numbers, I mean, registers per project, and that is, by all accounts, that's enough. That's very much enough. So this way you can just keep global harps for specifically files that you want to be able to get to no matter what, and then use per project like local harps when you want to store some files specific to a project. Like this configuration file, for example, I don't need to visit it often at all. And when I do, I will most likely be in .dot files. So that's why I stored it as a per project harp. But then Astro Core, I edit so often that I do want to have access to it always, so that I could quickly change something in here and then reload Neovim. So immediately this is cool, and this is the functionality that I started with, and it already like fixed my enormous fucking almost grudge against Harpoon, because in my opinion Harpoon works in an unfortunate way. I think I already complained about it in the past on stream, but TLDR Harpoon is limiting. Okay, I'm gonna elaborate. So the way Harpoon works is that it gives you an array. Hello. It gives you an array where you can store your files. So what does that mean for us? We have index 1, index 2, index 3, index 4, 5. For what it's worth, they're not actually limited. Like, you can have as many as you want, I think. If not, I would have another grudge. But let's say you like this file and you want to store it so you can jump to it quickly. Alright, let's think about hotkeys. Since these are indexed, you're likely to use numbers. Let's make up something. Leader A and then the number. Yeah, so for example, leader A and then the number, because that makes a lot of sense. You'll probably want to mimic the behavior of the plugin in your key maps, so fair enough. And you're like, okay, I look at this file, it would be most comfortable for me to store it in index 3. Doesn't have to be any reason, it just feels like you would remember it the best if it was at index 3. Well, you can't actually do that. You can't just put it to index 3, you have to put it at index 1 first. Then you switch to a different file and you want to save it as well, and then you have to put it at index 2. You still cannot put it at index 3. Well, now you have the option, you could maybe switch around 1 and 2. So you could put 1 into 2 and what was in 2 into 1. And now you have to remember where each file lies. At the third file, now you can put the initial file, which is now here, into 3, and then you have to move the new file into 2, I guess. So effectively, you cannot just put some file into an index that you enjoy the most. No, you cannot, unfortunately. You have to use the maximum index of how many files you store, which is incredibly fucking annoying because reaching for numbers is kind of annoying to me. So I wanted to make like, oh my god. What was I talking about? Yeah, so you can't arbitrarily put some file into some index. The reason why this is useful is because reaching for numbers is kind of annoying. I try to avoid it when possible. So what I wanted to do is make mappings for keys on the home row, where I could do something like this, and then I press A, for example, and that meant 1. Oh, sorry. And then S means 2, D means 3, etc., etc. If we use the concept of registers, it is much easier to assign mnemonics for different files. Like, for example, AstroCore. So this file is in register C for me. It's very easy to remember because AstroCore and C, that's very easy. When you try to make mnemonics for numbers, that's way more difficult. I'd probably store it at 5, I feel like, but this connection is way weaker. So effectively, my entire question towards Harpoon is, why in the living and dying hell is it based on numbers anyway, when it should be using the much more useful concept of registers to begin with? That plugin feels short-sighted even now, because as far as I know, it hasn't been fully remade to make more sense. It is short-sighted because people will never want to store more than a few files at a time. That's impossible. It is very much possible, and I'm surprised you haven't designed to think of that. What's his name? No, his name is not Estrogen. Primogen. Effectively, I am frustrated and annoyed and disappointed and offended that a developer so seemingly good would design this poorly for something this huge. I don't like him, straight up. I'm starting drama. And then making a billion videos on it. No, I don't have energy for that. So, what about Harp though? Harp just straight up does not have this issue. You simply use registers. And although the plugin assumes you want to use keys as registers, you actually don't have to. You can name your registers wherever you fucking want. So if we go to my thingy, you can see that all of the registers that I use here are single letters, numbers, symbols, whatever. So yeah, that is because all of the hotkeys then expect a single key that I press and use that as a register. Well, the thing is, you don't actually have to use single keyed registers. You could, if you wanted, make yourself have to name them. Something like you press letter S and then it expects input from you, and then you type in like secret or whatever, press enter, and then the file stored in the register named secret is opened. Like, you could do that. The API is very open for you to be able to do that. So I designed it in a much more open way than Harpoon is. And then also, Harpoon is only project specific. It does not have global harps, and it does not have the next things that we're gonna get to. Can you store buffers that are not currently visible? Absolutely. That's like the point. Unless I'm misunderstanding your question, can you store buffers that are not currently visible? Well, in the sense that, let's say I reload Neovim, just reloaded it, and when I do my harps, they are still active. They don't like disappear. Once you store some harp, it is stored permanently. There's also a way to like clear some stored registers, but that's still kind of being worked on. The base program harp already supports it, so you could do something like harp clear and then section register like this to clear a register. But there's no convenient API in the Neovim plugin to use that. So basically, once you store some harp, it is there permanently. Yeah, basically, harpoon.hash map. Once again, I'm so surprised that it isn't that by default. So we have these two. Now we have local marks. They're exactly what they sound like. They're the lowercase marks that you might know about. So this is not revolutionary at all. Local marks of harp just make sure that they work. Effectively, that's it. Because sometimes when you use default built-in lowercase marks in Neovim, they get broken. Sometimes. Like, say you make some mark here, for example, like here, and then you format the file, like you're somewhere, you format the file and you want to come back, and then when you try to go to that local mark, it's like, oh, I am invalid. And instead of just trying to go to the location that it stores anyway, instead it just breaks and does nothing. So a position that might have been very fucking important to you to be able to get back to is just now permanently lost. This is an issue with local marks that I found very common, and that is the reason why I never used local marks, because they were constantly fucking broken. Well, basically now with harp you don't have to worry about that. Once you store a local mark, it stays permanently, it will not be broken. And if it is incorrect, it will still just go you to the line and column that you stored. Even if it's like off, it will be where you set it, effectively. It will not just say, nah. No, it will listen to you and do what you want. So effectively, the only thing that it does is that it fixes this issue. It doesn't do anything like, I guess, cooler than that. Global marks is just pretty much completely unnecessary. Global marks in built-in Neovim actually work correctly. There's no issue with them. But you only have uppercase characters to use for global marks. And using harp, you can use both ranges. So I could do leader Z, I now have for global marks. And let's do lowercase t, imagine, and this is a global mark that goes me to a file and then to a specific location in the file. So effectively, this functionality is not new at all. You just get more options in terms of the keys or registers that you can use for this kind of thing. What I meant before is that if your plugin exposed a function that takes in a buffer number so that the user can integrate it with buffer selection UIs like Telescope or Bufferline plugins, well, hold up now. If you're using Telescope anyway, just use Telescope, no? Well, the real answer is that it's being worked on by a person who actually cares about that functionality. I sincerely could not care less. I can remember at once like fucking 50 different sets of registers, chord hotkeys, and whatever other bullshit. I love that shit. So I really don't care about making this type of thing more like easier to remember or user friendly. No, I'll just go the hard way and remember it, which is why I do agree it's like a good idea. I just really don't care to implement it, but somebody does. And if somebody watching also is interested in that type of functionality, go ahead. You can like submit a PR that implements it. Yeah, that's actually one of the things that is currently like open in question for the Rust side of Harp. And just for the first time you save a buffer. What do you mean? I don't get what you mean. CD harps. CD harp is actually what I'm using here in Fish Shell to go to different directories, and I've actually already used it multiple times throughout this stream. This just stores your current working directory, plain and simple. That's literally all it does. And what that lets you do is quickly move to a different directory to change your current working directory to something else. They have a mapping that says save this buffer, right? Yeah. Basically, a mapping that says save this buffer to a register that you're going to press. So leader capital S, and now it expects a single key for you to press, and then it saves the current buffer in the register of the key that you pressed. And by the way, what's interesting is that a key like Control V, for example, also works, which is interesting. Well, maybe not. No, yeah, it does. Genuinely. Let's go to some other file and then do leader S Control V. Like, you can do this shit. As long as Neovim understands the key that you're pressing, you can use it like as a register name. I have no clue what it is like seen as here. It shouldn't break anything, but I'm almost expecting it to. So in harps, we'll see. Yeah, isn't this wild? Isn't this insane? Just stores Control V as a character that stores this thingy. I find this to be like immensely fucking cool. Is the function tied to it able to take in a buffer number instead of just this buffer? Better, it can take in a file path. And I'm not going to explain the API very well, but long story short, you can see here in the explanation of every type of harp, it mentions the related API that this particular harp has, and each harp has like a lower level function that lets you like pass the register directly and pass the expected parameters directly rather than interactively getting them. And yeah, I don't see any reason to use buffer numbers when you could just use paths directly. So yeah, basically, yes, you can. You have a lot of power over how you want to use harp and even the harp plugin for Neovim. I just found it really nice to be able to use register-like motions, but it could be a take my input type of thing as well, which is why I provide this lower level API, so you can do things like this however you want. So CD harps let you go to a different current working directory. Like this, I am currently in .files, and with this plus blammo, I am now in a different current working directory. And it was that fucking easy to move, that fast and incredibly easy to move to a whole different place. And then I share these CD harps for fish shell. They use the same exact thing, as you can see. So you can use the same section of harps in different programs for like the same effect effectively. Could you explain the Lua Rust harp divide? Yes, so the Rust program harp is just a abstraction that lets you more easily interact with the YAML file through the command line. So instead of having to somehow edit the YAML file, you just say harp get, for example, CD harps, what we are currently looking at, in D, and get the path of the register D. And here you go, you get the direct path that is stored there. And you didn't need to know how to like parse this in Lua. You don't have to, you just call a shell command and you get the path directly. Here you go. Don't need to worry about it. Then the Lua side. What do you mean YAML skull? That's like the best thing. What, do you want me to do it in JSON? To store even more characters? Fuck no. And YAML is actually like nicer to look at. I'm offended. Blech. Blech. I don't like TOML, it's kinda weird. I mean, it's alright, I just prefer YAML. I think I have PTSD from the first time I tried Alacrity. It was, I think, in TOML. Or maybe at that time it was in YAML. Regardless. YAML too sensitive to white space. I don't care. The program does it for me. The program like deserializes its data into YAML itself. I don't need to touch it ever. No, fuck no. I'm not gonna try anything. No. Like, YAML is plentifully great enough. I don't need to solve an issue that I don't have, you know? Right, so the Lua side uses this harp program and calls it to do Neovim specific stuff, like implementing the actual harps and using them in the sense of, oh, get this harp, or rather, get the input from the user, consider that to be the register that they put in, look into the register, what is the path in that register? Stop calling me. Yeah, look into the path that is stored in that register, and then go and edit that path. So this is what the Lua side is doing. It is interacting with Neovim to do like a useful effect. I don't mean for harp, I mean in general. In general, I don't have nearly enough time to try out every single potentially cool thing. It's an addiction that I'm trying to cure here, you know? Yeah, so CD harps, they're amazing, incredible, especially considering how kind of a hassle changing your current working directory is usually. I think usually people just open a new Neovim from a different directory or use Zoxide directly, which I don't have working currently for whatever reason. It broke. And I am trying to bring you down with me. Please don't. So yeah, so I couldn't even use Zoxide right now in Neovim because it doesn't work, which is pretty funny. But I can use harp to jump around different working directories very quickly, like on a whim. And the final one, I think the final one, yeah. The final one is really fucking weird. It is like insanely weird. So let me try to explain it. Well, I guess it is explained here already, but I'll try to reword it so it's still like useful for you to go read there. A file that you have in almost every project is a gitignore file. We touched upon per project harps. So maybe you need to edit the gitignore file in a project really often. So what you might want to do is, first of all, you go there for the first time into gitignore, and then you do, let's save this as a per project harp into G. All right, now it is stored. And now as I work on a project, jump around, I can go to gitignore, to the gitignore of this project. All right, then now I go work on a different project and I want to go to the gitignore of this project now. Oh, right, I don't have this harp yet because it's per project. Now I have to go to the gitignore, and now I can set it again. You see how now it's repeating? I have the same file, gitignore, that I keep on needing to visit in different projects, and I keep on needing to set a new per project harp to get to it quickly. You call each save a harp. Wouldn't it be better to call them a harp string? Nope, because that sounds confusing along with the concept of registers or harp note or sound or a tone. Yep, it's hilarious. It's been a fucking month. They still haven't fixed it. Nope, I refuse to think that it's my CSS doing it, because what on earth would be doing this? And why? This is like so incredibly annoying. Basically, no, I'm not sure why it would be better. So the thing that unifies all of these gitignore files is that they have the same path relative to their current working directory. So their relative path is the same. You can think about the main rs file in a very similar way. It will always be source main rs. And no matter how many Rust projects you're going to be working on, if they have a main rs, which they usually do, this will be in the same exact path. So you'll need to recreate a per project harp every fucking single time. Now, for what it's worth, it's not as bad as having to always search for it, because you do just do it once per project. It's not that big of a deal. But regardless, it's just kind of annoying. It's non-perfect, so I don't like it, which is why I created another type of harp, which I call a positional harp. The position of this file relative, stop calling me, that shit throws me off. Like, I don't get people. Like, if I reject your call, I probably don't want to talk to you. Why would you call again? It is not that serious. Like, stop calling me. Like, goddamn, you know? The position of this file relative to the current working directory stays the same. So what if we just store the like relative, don't call me again, true words have never been spoken. Thank you. It's so true. So the relative path always stays the same. If we just look at this and cross this out, if we don't care about the current working directory, what we do when we edit this path is that it's going to be opened relatively. Bye-bye. This path is going to be opened relatively, and it doesn't matter what your current working directory is. This is going to be opened relatively anyway. It's not going to care. Does this make sense? So if you edit this relative path, no matter the project, you're going to end up in the main RS of that project rather than some absolute main RS. Do you notice my gimmick this stream? Yeah, I think you uppercase the last letter, which funnily enough, I have now learned how to do using this, like the substitute command in Neovim. It's very interesting. I'm probably going to talk about it next stream. So yeah, let me put in some snooze because my brain is kind of rotting. I need to rot it more. Bye bye. I noticed this. This used to have, wait, keyword modifier. I used to have this keyword colored differently, and it's very interesting to see it as this color now, but it's like a completely different subject. What was I even talking about? Right, so the position is the same, and when we try to edit that position, that relative path is going to open the path of that project, not some absolute path. So what if we store the gitignore path and just use it everywhere? That is exactly what I did just now. Leader RG, and it goes to gitignore. It literally does this, which ends up opening the gitignore file of this project. If I go to dot files, you can see that I'm now in dot files. And I do leader RG again, you can see that the gitignore file is now different. That's a different file relative to this project. Let's go back to harp. I can now do leader RM, and I go to main RS. I go to G, to glaza, and then I do leader RM. It's a different file now. It's the main RS of this different Rust project. So the idea of positional harps is that you just store the relative path, and then you're basically assuming that this is a common structural path in different types of projects. Maybe this is the project for harp Neovim, so the Neovim plugin. Maybe Lua init.lua is very common in Lua projects. In Rust projects, it's SRS main, right? Git ignore is like in every project, more or less. Then I have a specific file that I always git ignore called project.txt, where I just store my ideas for what I want to implement to the project. Why not GitHub issues? Because I can't be bothered. Usually my idea is like add thingy that things, and that's it. If I had to put it into more words, I would lose my focus. So I don't want to, which is why I just have a file that I git ignore. And then interestingly, I can do run a project to get a look at all of the tasks for all the projects that I have. So this is very fucking convenient, isn't it? And this wouldn't really be as reasonable without positional harps. Because the thing is, you can see that this file is empty. You know why? Because it didn't used to exist. It didn't exist before. And if we... I think it's probably git ignored already. Either it didn't exist or I already cleared everything. But regardless, positional harps, another cool thing that they do is that they create the file if it didn't exist before. Same goes for git ignore. This is empty. I'm pretty sure it didn't exist before. Is that true? No, it probably existed before. Regardless, it opens this path. And then if you save it, this file gets created. So this is like extra fucking incredible. Because if you keep having the same structure in a lot of your projects, you don't have to recreate the same harps again and again. You can just store them as positional harps, and then you won't have to remake them. I could make a new Rust project right now and just press leader RM and it would go, yeah, see? Just created a new file. Isn't that super cool? So I find this to be fucking incredible. So these are the however many, I think 5, 7, I don't know, built-in harps that the Neovim plugin provides. The thing is, you have the API to interact with harp. So you have lower level thingies. Surprisingly enough, I still haven't implemented like call harp, like the lowest level of this thing, so you could more easily create your own sections and ideas. I should probably do that. And I can just go into the project and type this in. Lowest level API to interact with subcommands of harp. Blammo. Yeah. So this is what harp is now. It has evolved quite significantly, and it is by far the most useful thing in Neovim in terms of traveling between files. It is fucking incredible. I love it a lot. Obviously, yeah, I made it. I would probably like it, you know, but it saddens me in a way that this kind of thing didn't exist before, where our best options were still kind of ass. Telescope is good. I love Telescope, don't get me wrong, but the way that it works and its use case is simply not as direct as the idea of Harpoon existed, but I already complained about why it's actually bad. I can't really call it bad because clearly a lot of people love it and enjoy it as it is, but it is very much not enough for me. So that's why there's now a fucking billion layer section registers chord hotkeys now. I love all of these sets of chord hotkeys and all of this type of bullshit that I have to keep in my head. For some reason, it's very, very enjoyable to me, probably because of the autism. So if you're autistic too, I'm pretty sure you're gonna love this. Well, and even if not, because there are some people considering working on the more like friendly API and UI to look at all of your currently existing registers. I don't have this thing, I don't care about it. I feel like I'll remember, and I do, all the registers that I want to use, because making mnemonics in my head is so fast and easy now because of how much I've done that. I'm a hotkey fucking lunatic. I've made so many hotkeys where now the skill of making mnemonics and connecting them to my muscle and like overall memory is super easy, which is why I'm like not too excited about the idea of having a UI for this, but obviously a lot of people and probably most people will want this, so it might exist in the future. So yeah, let me actually give you the link to the plugin now. Of course, I have talked about this throughout this entire stream, but obviously I'm leaving out a lot of the pretty important details and how this is used, how it works, blah blah blah. So I do still recommend to read the readmes that are left here, because it goes into more detail and is more specific in explaining how things work. Yeah, I think that's it for harp, more or less. I'm leaving out a lot, but also haven't streamed in a month. I've also haven't been able to like program anything or use even harp extensively throughout this month. You know why? Because I've actually been working. I got a job at a local store, and since the 5th of May I've been working there, and the day before yesterday I quit because that shit is too difficult. Like, god damn. My schedule was 4 days of work. Each day is 11 hours of work, and then supposedly 3 weekends. I have never seen those 3 consecutive weekends in my entire month of work. At the most I got 2 in a row, and that is like way too taxing. I didn't have enough time to sleep. Like, I underslept pretty consistently. Forget about shaving, which is very important to me, and overall living. Because of this lack of time, my place is a mess. And like, I have literally 0 time to do anything programming related, because the weekends I spent on like bringing my place into shape, which is also the reason why I haven't been streaming for so long, because of the job. But yeah, I quit because it's way too difficult, so I'm going to try to find a different job, which is like a bit more lax. Because what I'm trying to look for right now is not more money, but more so less work. And I guess I picked the wrong place for me. yeah, but I'm glad I got the experience of working at a place like this, because I was already very respectful to store clerks and like people at work basically, but now it's even more profound. I can like more directly understand and feel the position of the workers that I interact with and be even more compassionate, open, and understanding. And that's worth a lot for me. Just feels nice. Like, oh, I see what you're going through, or I see you're just starting out as well. That's all right. You're gonna learn everything. Don't worry about it. I don't know. It's a very useful experience, and I'm glad to have had. But yeah, it was way too difficult for me. When I start a new job, my body has a habit of getting sick because it's way too overwhelming. So it's like, oh, I'm gonna run away. So because of that, because I was sick for a really long time and didn't have enough money to like get unsick, so that was like extra difficult because of that. Well, I'm gonna have a bit more time right now, so maybe I'll stream a bit more often, which is quite exciting. I might even fucking finish Glaza finally and show that off as well. Yeah, but for now, this is it. Thanks for watching, and